What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunched Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn. That's right, fight prediction, keys of victory, and let's get to it. And you guys know how I do it when we get to it with the legendary Tale of the Tape. That's right. Age 35 for Eubank Jr. as opposed to 28 for Conor Benn. Nicknamed the Next Generation. Conor Benn's nickname is the Destroyer. 5'11" for Chris Eubank Jr. 5'8" for Conor Benn. 72.5-inch reach for Eubank Jr. 68-inch reach for Conor Benn. Jonathan Banks is his new trainer after many different trainers, Roy Jones Jr., Eubank Sr., etc., etc. Of course, Tony Sims is rocking with Conor Benn. Record 34-3-25 by Eubank Jr. and 23-0 with 14 KOs by Conor Benn. Last fight, one versus Camille Zarameta versus Peter Dobson, February of 2024. Okay, so there is a big gap in the last fight, okay, because, you know, Peter Dobson was February of 2024. That was last year. And October of 2024 for Chris Eubank Jr., which he is, you know, has been more active. And let me get to the keys of victory. For Chris Eubank Jr., I think he should use his size if the size is a factor. And I'm going to say that because of this reason. Well, there's a rehydration clause where Chris Eubank Jr. can't go over 10 pounds past that hydration limit. He can't. He can't get over 170. If he does, I don't know. I don't know if the fight will be void. I don't know if he'll be fined. But I know he got extra cash to stay within those hydration parameters, okay? So I think if he's bigger, it will help, but I don't know if that will be the case. Durability, they've both been down. Chris Eubank Jr. was upset by Liam Beefy Smith, okay, which he avenged that loss, which now you do question his chin. Is his chin gone? Is he another Joe Joyce? Because up until that point, Chris Eubank Jr. never really seemed to be hurt. He was a pretty durable bloke until he ran into Liam Smith, of course. But like I've been telling people, it's all about how many times you can get hit. It's all about a numbers game. Pretty soon you will get hit with something that, that will affect you. Conor, I think Conor's quicker. I think Conor has better footwork. I think Conor's fresher, honestly. Even though he's been out of the ring for a while, I think Conor Benn is the youth is on his side, so I think he needs to use the speed for his advantage. This is a high-spirited fight because it's a lot on the line for both guys. And it's more than just them. It's them. It's their family name. The Chris Eubanks have been over the Conor Benns, and I think the pressure is also on Conor because he wants to change the history debate, the history outcome. He wants to change that. So I do think that is what it is. And I think Chris Eubank Jr., he is the bigger guy, but I don't think it helps him in this situation. In fact, he's the bigger guy, but can he hurt Conor Benn? And I would say yes. And I think this fight is really simple. It's going to be high-spirited. It's going to be very emotional. It's going to be probably a lot of fouls. So don't be surprised if you see some deductions. Hitting behind the head, hitting and holding, shoving, pushing, tugging, probably near riots. I see that type of fight this weekend. A lot of people are looking at knockouts, but hell, it could very well be a disqualification. Because the way these guys look at each other, I mean, you're going to have Nigel in Conor's corner. You won't have Chris Eubank Sr. in Chris's corner. Which, could that be a factor? Yeah, especially if this is the biggest fight of his life. I think it's actually tackish tacky to for Chris Eubank Sr. to be out of the corner of his son. You know what I mean? He doesn't want the fight to happen, but it's going to happen with or without him. So I would rather want my father there, especially when Senior was notorious and very well known for being in his father's corner, seeing every step that he took. Okay. So that's not a good thing for Chris Eubank Jr. The age is not. The possible durability factor's gone. If I was a betting man, I would bet on Conor. Why? Because Conor Benn is a guy that doesn't have the rehydration clause. He doesn't. He doesn't have an issue. I don't think he will go past 170 anyway if they're upheld on both sides. You know, Chris Eubank Jr., he has a lot to prove. You know, he's trying to prove that he's a clean fighter, whereas, you know, Conor Benn, of course, was popped twice with the same drug, clomiphene. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. I just hope that there's no funny business like that, you know, testing positive for whatever. I hope none of that happens. All right. But Chris Eubank Jr., I think it's all about who catches who first, who's smarter on the night. Okay. Who's smarter on the night? Because you're going to have two high-spirited guys with a lot to prove. They're going to go in there. They're going to swing big. They're going to set shots out. Every punch is going to be with bad intentions on both ends. And I think it's whoever lands that one big shot, you know, or it will be like Hagler Hearns, you know, going in there and just fighting and duking it out and having it out, you know, like it's 3 p.m., you know, in the back of the school, right? That may be that case, but I do think whoever lands first, strikes fast, strikes first, will win this fight. Because Chris Eubank, you know, he is a guy that he is naturally bigger, but I don't know how that will affect him. But I think both of these guys are fighting for other stuff. Sure, it's the fight purses, but it's also for the family name as well. But I lean towards Conor Benn simply based on the fact that he's just younger and fresher versus Chris Eubank Jr. He's bigger, but then he's 35. He's been stopped recently, so that's not really a good thing. He's taller, he's bigger. You know, again, I would really like to see how Chris would be at what one's, you know, at the proper rehydration limit, you know, but we won't get to see that. So if you do see a weak Chris, it's going to be sad because you know where it's coming from. It's not coming from the fact that, you know, he's a poor fighter. It's coming from the fact that he just couldn't get that proper amount of fluid and weight back on to help him through this fight. So, but yeah, I fancy Conor Benn for this fight simply based off of all the advantages that he has. But you guys tell me what you think of this breakdown between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch.